Okay, strategies to sell homes quickly in a shift. Let's review what we talked about yesterday. Number one, study the market every day in order to master the science and skill of pricing. Number two, use supply and demand to help sellers self-discover the right pond to go fishing in order to fish with your bait in the water. Number three, create the market versus chasing the market. Four, price based on the new ceiling versus the new floor. And then five, outscript your sellers. Remember, sellers go to script school. All right, so I'm going to share some notes with you that I got from Shift this morning. All of this is from Gary Keller. So thank you, Gary Keller. A market shift underscores the importance of pricing and exposes cavalier agents who don't give pricing strategies research attention and serious thought. You guys are at a huge advantage because you have this information. I got a call from a real estate agent yesterday, $20 million plus producer with another office, not with KW, thanking me and thanking all of you for everything that we're putting out on social media. And her comment to me was, John, I'm just so grateful that you're sharing this information because we don't get this at the office we're in, right? Yeah. And of course, all of you are thinking, well, John, recruiter. Yeah, I've been talking with her for 4 years, guys. I'm on it. The most successful agents become masters of pricing and masterful in getting their sellers to trust the findings and act on them. In other words, you have to be a master at communication. It's not enough just to know this data, not enough just to know this information. You have to be able to convey it, right, Michael, in a way where your clients understand what you're sharing with them. And you have to do it in a way where you're not coming across as somebody who's doing this because you're attached to the deal. You don't want to have commission breath. You don't want them to hear, I want you to price your home here because I want it to sell quick so I can get paid. No, that's not the conversation. And you have to be really good at conveying that. Buyers are always looking for value. True. They want the best property at the best price. Also true. And a shift doesn't change this. It actually accentuates it because the direction and speed at which a buyer thinks prices are going. In other words, buyers are paying attention, right? And they know that the market's shifting. They know it before the sellers do, by the way. And they're going to start lowballing offers. They're going to start, remember that at one point there was no ceiling. Now there's no floor for them. There's no price too low for them. At one point there was no price too high. And they're looking for that great value. And they believe that prices are falling before prices are falling. And that's why price is so important in a shift. As an agent, your job is to advise your sellers on the correct pricing strategy to sell their home and also on general pricing of the market. You are making an observation and a forecast. The observation of current pricing is the science and the forecast is the skill. For sellers in a shift, the need for an agent who has mastered the science, the skill, and the art of pricing becomes critical. The essence of the right pricing strategy is identifying the right comparable properties. Okay, so what makes a property comparable? There's actually 4 things. And if you're taking notes, please write this down. The 4 things that we look at in order to determine if we're looking at a comparable property or not is, number 1, location. And you're looking at properties within the same neighborhood. If it's a subdivision, a neighborhood, you want to stay in the neighborhood if possible. The only reason you go outside the neighborhood is if you can't find enough comparable properties in the neighborhood. But that's not the only thing we're talking about when we're talking about location. If I have a property that I'm selling that backs to a lake, I'm looking for other homes that back to a lake versus a home that backs to a busy street. They could be in the same neighborhood, but they have two very different locations. And if I'm sitting at the kitchen table, I'm bringing every single property that's sold with me because I don't want to leave any stones unturned. Script, write it down. However, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, as we're going through these properties, will find homes, will find comparables, properties that are not comparable to yours, and we're just going to put those off to the side. Our goal here is to find 2 or 3 properties that have sold recently that are as close to being identical to your home as possible. Script, write it down. Location is huge. It is a big part of comparable. Size. The rule of thumb that I use is I want 10% within the subject property. So if I have a 3,000 square foot subject property, comparables would be anything between 3,300 square foot and 2,700 square foot. So again, I'm sitting at the kitchen table, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, this home has 4,000 square foot. It's actually quite larger than yours. Therefore, it's not really comparable. So we're going to put it off to the side for now. The reason I say for now is I might come back to it. Okay. Ideally, though, I want properties that are within 10% of my subject property size-wise. Now, beds and baths, that's part of it. However, if my subject home is a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-car garage home, I can use a 4-bedroom home as long as it's within that 10% square footage wise. And we're just making adjustments for an additional bedroom or the lack of a bedroom. All right. The third thing we're looking for is amenities. If the subject property has a pool, I'm looking at other homes with a pool. If it doesn't have a pool, I want to find comparable properties that don't have a pool, ideally. Now, if we can't, we can make adjustments for that, but those amenities are part of what we're looking for to determine, is this property comparable or is it not? The last thing we're looking at is condition. So if I'm looking at a property that's been completely updated, then I'm looking for comparables, Nick, that have been completely updated. Vice versa, Mike, if I'm looking at a home that is 30 years old and it's dated, I'm looking for comparables that are also dated, ideally. Remember, ideally, we're looking for 2 or 3 homes. And why that number? Because that's what an appraiser was going to look for. And I think like an appraiser when I'm sitting at that kitchen table. I'm looking for 2 or 3 properties that are as close to being identical to your home as possible. Okay, so those are the 4 things that determine whether or not a property is comparable or not. The next thing is you also want to factor in when the property was sold or when it went pending. If I have a comparable that sold 5 months ago versus one that sold 30 days ago in today's market, I'm going to focus more on the property that sold 30 days ago than the one who sold 5 months ago. So when the property sold or when it went pending. Finally, you'll want to look at comparable actives to get a sense of your current competition. And remember, in this market, in order to sell your home, we have to beat the competition. So we're looking at these comparable actives, and I'm going through the comparables with them, and I'm sharing with them what that property has. And Nick, I'm going to stop and I'm going to ask them, Nick, hey, just out of curiosity, everything I've shared with you so far, would you say this property is comparable to your home? Okay. Is it more updated or less updated than your home? Right? The location that we're looking at, if you were a buyer and you could pick between your home and this comparable property, and you were just looking at location, which property would you prefer to make an offer on? Your property or the comparable home? All right. Now, if their location is more desirable than yours, how do you fix that? Has 5 letters, starts with a P. Right. Thank you. Price. All right. The goal is to determine the right price range. Notice I did not say price. It is to determine the right price range and position in order to beat the competition. In other words, where do we need to be in order to be the shining star? Well, the formula that I've used in listing and selling 100, 120 homes a year in this market is top third in condition, bottom third in price. Top third in condition, bottom third in price. So if there's 12 homes for sale, the top third condition-wise would be the top 4 homes. I want to be one of the top 4 for location and condition, amenities, and size. I also want to be one of the bottom 4 in price. If we're looking at a price range between $550 and $600, and the bottom 4 are $585, $584, $583, $582, $581, $580. I want to be in there. I want to be in that price range because I want to be one of the bottom 4 in price. Now, if my home is not top third in condition, how do I fix that? Thank you. Price. All right. Factors that make it more difficult to sell in a shift. Boy, this is so important. Please write this down. You see, this is important now because I have choices. When there's a lack of inventory, I don't have as many choices. Therefore, these challenges aren't challenges. When there's more homes to choose from, if I'm looking in a neighborhood and I'm looking between 550 and 600, or I'm looking within a 2 to 3 mile radius, because I'm not just shopping in one neighborhood. I have to think like a buyer, guys. And I find 5 homes that I like. And one of them backs to a busy road. The other 4 don't. They back to a lake, they back to conservation, they back to the golf course. Which home is going to be the last home I would make an offer on? The one that backs to a busy road. Now, if I only have one home to choose from and it backs to a busy road, which one am I making an offer on? The one that backs to a busy road. All right, so the conditions that make it difficult to sell in a shifting market are busy street. Number 2, industrial or commercial proximity. Your home backs to a power plant. That's going to be tough to sell in a shifting market. Industrial or commercial proximity. Third is garage. So if I'm shopping for a home in an area where there are subdivisions and most homes are 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, 2-car garage, or 4 bedrooms, 3 baths, 2-car garage, and somebody's converted their garage into living space and they don't have a garage. If you could choose between 5 homes, you like them all, they're all in the same price range, they're priced equally, and one of them doesn't have a garage, which is going to be the last home you would make an offer on? The one without the garage. Hard to sell in a shifting market. Functional obsolescence. If you remember from real estate school, what that means is there's something funky about the house that makes it hard to sell. Obsolescence. You want to spell it? OBSOLESCENCE. Okay. I'll give you an example. You have a 4th bedroom that in order to get to the bedroom, you have to go through the 3rd bedroom. You've seen that. Yeah. It's considered functional obsolescence. It's weird. Yeah. Okay. You have a 2-story home, and for some reason, living space 1st floor, living space 2nd floor. It's not flood zone like a Key West style home. Living space both floors. And for some reason, they put the kitchen on the 2nd floor. Weird. Functional obsolescence. All right. There's 2 bathrooms, but the 2nd bathroom is in the garage. I've seen it. You'll see it eventually. It's functional obsolescence. That makes it difficult to sell in a shifting market. When the market's hot and there's no homes to choose from, beggars can't be choosers. Did I say that right? Yeah, good. All right. And then the last thing that it's going to make it difficult to sell in a shift, and I was just talking with an agent about this yesterday, is high-priced homes missing high-priced amenities. So you have a home in a neighborhood, it's a newer neighborhood, the homes are 20 years old or newer, 10 years old or newer, and you're selling a $1.5 million home and it doesn't have a pool. People buying a $1.5 million home, 5,000 square foot, probably a family, probably want a pool. Now you don't have a pool because you built the house and you're like, I don't want a pool. And you're going to meet with sellers who are going to tell you, but I don't want a pool, John. I think it's an advantage my home doesn't have a pool. You'll hear that. Remember, they go to script school. You're not buying your home. That's your response to that. If you were buying your home, then you're right. It wouldn't be a big deal. But because you're not buying your home, it is a big deal. It's kind of like buying a luxury car with cloth seats. Would you do that? Would you? Right? Or it doesn't come with a steering wheel. It's extra. Weird. Okay. So you buy in a high-priced home, you expect it to have high-priced amenities. It's a $1.5 million home, and instead of tile floors, it has vinyl floors. That's going to make it difficult to sell. Now, the question is, how do you fix that? Price. So here's what I want you to write down. Price fixes everything. Every home will sell. Every home will sell. Everyone, including the most challenged home in your city, will sell for the right price. All right, I'm going to close with the best way to truly serve a seller in a shift is to persuade them to outthink the other sellers. Be strategic. Play chess. Outthink the other sellers they must compete against. When the buyers pull back, which are the buyers pulling back now? Say yes. Successful sellers must be persuaded to step out in front. They must price ahead of the market. Now, pricing ahead of the market simply means we do this yesterday. And the properties you're competing against are averaging out at $565,000. Pricing ahead of the market is putting your home on the market at $545 in order to beat the market. And eventually the market's gonna catch up with that price anyways. Remember, sellers go to script school and they're gonna say, I don't want to give my home away. Okay, I get that. And Mr. and Mrs. Seller, if you sold for $545,000 today, in a year from now, your home is $525,000. Did you give your home away? You sold it for $545,000, and a year from now, your home is sold. You no longer live in it. You've moved on to that new home that you want to live in. And the home you sold for $545,000 is now worth $525,000. Did you give your home away? The answer is no. Okay. That's pricing ahead of the market. All right. Raise your hand. Talk to me. Anna.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, so I don't want to go against any of the information you're saying. Of course, it makes 100% sense, but I understand that the market is shifting in the $1 million range.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Currently. That's like mostly where it's at. And the reason why I'm asking this question is because My friend is now selling her condo and I'm going to be listing it, but it's only for 200K.
Mhm.
Now, whenever I'm looking at the surrounding areas, there's nothing listed currently for an active listing that I can go against. So do I underprice, or what do I do?
It's a really good question. And you've heard me say before, if somebody asks you, how's the market? My answer to that is, it depends.
Mhm.
It depends on where your home is located and what price range we're looking at. Because we can have a buyer's market and a seller's market at the same time. We can have a red hot seller's market and a shifting market at the same time. And for that condo, as long as there's deals closing, okay, then you're absolutely right. You're going to price that property like you would have 6 months ago, 9 months ago, because this conversation doesn't apply to that property.
Okay. And lastly, I saw a property that we were following. It posted at 145,000
Mhm.
and it sold at 185,000.
Uh-huh.
So then underpricing it would still be, what would you do?
I'm always going to price as low as I can possibly price based on the market, because I want to create a bidding war. If I can create a bidding war, then buyers will bid the price up. And that's exactly what happened in the case of that property that you're referencing. Now, we don't know if there was any money that was thrown into that deal that was concessions for the buyer. So when you're talking to agents, and you should do this, this is a habit that you could create, is don't just pull the comparables, call the agent who had the listing and ask them, was there any concessions for the buyer? Was any of that $185,000 going back to the buyer at closing? Because what if there was $10,000 that was going back to the buyer, for example, then it didn't really sell for 185, it sold for 175.
Mhm.
Megan, you're up next.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I'm really glad that you said that, because it's a perfect segue to what I've been thinking about this whole time. So I have had